Are you ready for a big day?
It is a big day.
Big
a lot
storm
happening overnight. Listen to this, everyone. More violence erupting in Ferguson. Just take a look at this police car here. It was actually set on fire.
It was, and a bunch of people were arrested as well. Joining us right now live from Ferguson with the breaking details. Once again, our man, Adam Housley. Adam, a quieter night, but the National Guard was out in full force.
They were, Steve. I'm going to give you a live look here. Then we'll show you the video from last night, and we'll explain the difference between last night and the night before. First of all, live look here. We're in Old Town Ferguson, about 3 miles away from Florissant, where we were yesterday morning with you guys, where we showed you all the businesses burning. This is where the police and fire station, main police and fire station are. As you pan around, you can see this road's now been reopened. But it was here where the protesters gathered last night. So let's go to the video last night. We can show you as they set a car on fire. They originally started here outside the police station and fire station. They then dispersed in a little bit, but then walked down the street and hit businesses that had not been torched or vandalized the night before. They vandalized many of those, breaking windows and going after it. They tried to flip over the police car. They eventually lit it on fire. One guy set himself on fire with a Molotov cocktail. But as that was going on, that was about the time that the police and National Guard basically said enough's enough, stepped in and stopped it. As you mentioned, more than 40 people were arrested. A lot of people here in Ferguson are saying, why didn't they do that the night before and diffuse it before it got more out of control? It seems like they took control at that point, and they, within a few minutes, really started to get the crowd knocked down in size. There were a few more skirmishes, but the good news is that was basically the extent of the violence here. Now, as I can tell you, driving around this morning as compared to last night, and the night before, there was a significant presence of National Guard troops around not only Ferguson but St. Louis. I was in downtown last night just kind of checking the area out around 8 and 9 o'clock. Outside every major courthouse or building that had anything to do that was official, you would see a Humvee with 4 National Guard troops either inside or outside standing near it. So they definitely have a much different control in this area, as we saw just from 24 hours ago, Steve. But the question really is, from a lot of people that we spoke to last night and again this morning, was why didn't they do that response the first night?
Yeah.
Why did they wait to do that kind of response last night? That's the big question.
That is the big question.
And we watched the governor last night tell everybody, hey, yeah, I had National Guard, but they were just in different locations. Now we have more, and they're actually going to be in protecting the stores. I just don't understand what's going on there. It makes me think when the lieutenant governor goes after the governor that there's a real political problem. Then a lot of people lost their businesses because of it.
There may be.
Yep.
Yeah, indeed. All right, Adam, thank you very much.
Thank you, Adam. Stay safe there.
All right. At the crux of all of what is going on in Ferguson, Missouri, was the struggle between Officer Darren Wilson and Michael Brown on that day in August. We have not heard from Mr. Wilson so far until last night. He sat down with George Stephanopoulos in Ferguson, Missouri. ABC got the exclusive rights to the interview. Apparently, they did not pay him any money. But here he is, Officer Wilson, explaining what happened that day.
He threw the first punch?
Yes. He threw the first one and hit me in the left side of my face.
Because, you know, some of the witnesses have said that they saw you trying to pull him into the car.
That would be against every training ever taught to any law enforcement officer. I just felt the immense power that he had. I mean, the way I've described it is it was like a 5-year-old holding on to Hulk Hogan. That's just how big this man was. And when I said, get back or I'm going to shoot you. And then his response, immediately, he grabbed the top of my gun. And when he grabbed it, he said, you're too much of a to shoot me. And while he's doing that, I can feel his hand trying to come over my hand and get inside the trigger guard and try and shoot me with my own gun. And that's when I pulled the trigger for the first time.
Why not stay in the car? He's running away.
Because he's not... My job isn't to just sit and wait. You know, I have to see where this guy goes.
So you felt it was your duty to give chase?
Yes, it was. That's what we were trained to do. When he stopped, he turned and faced me. And as he does that, his right hand immediately goes into his waistband. And his left hand is a fist at his side, and he starts charging me.
What did you think when you saw that?
I didn't know. I mean, my initial thought was, is there a weapon in there?
Even though he hadn't pulled something out earlier when he was confronting you?
It was still just the unknown. And again, we're taught to let me see your hands.
As you know, some of the eyewitnesses have said, at that moment when he turned around and put his hands up.
That would be incorrect.
No way?
No way.
You know, people come up and says, well, he looks cold. You know, the Daily News, what's the headline today? He's cold as ice.
I thought he looked young as could be.
I just thought he was just telling a story as he remembered it. It's kind of going through it.
Sure, I mean, that's the closest we've come to hearing, I mean, any sort of account. You know, we saw pictures come through yesterday. We hear his account last night, and he went on to actually talk about the heart under his badge and the remorse that he feels, and actually what he would say to Michael Brown's family. Take a listen and look.
The Brown family came out with a statement last night where they said, "We are profoundly disappointed that the killer of our child will not face the consequences of his actions." What do you think when you hear that?
I think those are grieving parents who are mourning the loss of their son. Not only is there anything they could say, but again, you know, I'm sorry that their son lost his life. It wasn't the intention of that day. It's what occurred that day. And there's nothing you can say that's going to make a parent feel better.
It sounds like you don't think you were responsible.
I did my job that day.
Do you feel any remorse?
Everyone feels remorse when a life's lost. Like I told you before, I never wanted to take anybody's life. You know, that's not the good part of the job. That's the bad part of the job. So yes, there is remorse.
He essentially went on to say, you know, it was basically he was going to kill me or I was going to kill him.
And that sets up the whole, and the grand jury believed his testimony that it was a clear case of self-defense. He also revealed that that was the first time he ever used his gun during the job, aside from target practice and stuff like that. Nonetheless, there's been a great deal of interest. We know that we saw the ratings. We know a lot of you people are interested in this. We're all interested in it. Bernie Goldberg was on with Bill O'Reilly last night and talked about how some people are trying to make this a black-white thing, a civil rights case. How does Bernie feel about it? Listen to him.
More than a few journalists, especially on television, are trying to turn this into a civil rights story. But you know what? Ferguson, Missouri is not Selma, Alabama. 2014 is not 1965. And Michael Brown is not Emmett Till or Medgar Evers or any other black person who was shot by a white bigot. Michael Brown that day stole stuff from a little convenience store and then roughed up the owner who was half his size. Michael Brown then thought he would get away with, according to the grand jury, with roughing up a cop. He brought about his own demise. It's a tragedy when any 18-year-old kid is killed. That, and especially for the parents, we certainly sympathize with that. But Michael Brown was the bad guy in this case. And please, America, let's not turn this kid into some kind of civil rights martyr, because that he is not.
Also, others pointing out that there have been 244 teens that have been killed in Chicago. So the major networks, along with other cable news outlets here, have not been covering that. The majority of those are black males. No word said about that death toll yet, a focus here, of course. So really just asking for equal opportunity when it comes to advocacy for these young black males who are dying.
And to Bernie's point, you know, keep in mind, it seems the grand jury agreed with essentially the testimony we just saw the officer give George Stephanopoulos and decided not to indict. They apparently, there were many witnesses, but at least a half a dozen African-American witnesses came forward and affirmed what Officer Wilson said. So it's, you know, it's not that, on some of the channels it has been very clear to them what happened, but you listen to him, you make your own decision. The grand jury, though, ultimately decided that there wasn't enough there to send him to trial.
But the investigation continues at the federal level. The president yesterday goes out to speak about immigration, gets interrupted quite often. But before he does that, kind of riffed about what this means, what this trial means, and he understands the frustration in these communities. Did point out in a very slow, modulated tone that this is not the way to act. These acts are illegal and they're felonies and looting, obviously. So we'll see where we go with this.
Let us know what you think too about. I mean, when you hear Officer Wilson speaking, email us, tweet us. Let us know what your reaction was listening to the officer speak about shooting Michael Brown. We'd love to know.
Because the Huffington Post writes today the BS meter was off the charts. You saw the Daily News says cold as ice, Steve. It's right down there. So what is your impression? Because this is the first time most of you, like us, have seen him talk.
That's right.
Cover the New York Post. It was him or me. And I've got the other one somewhere.
You know what else is making